Welcome to Kautilya Careers. This is Lakshmi Narayana, faculty in Sociology. See, friends, our government has introduced the social structure in our Public Service Commission examination syllabus, and in this social structure, what are the different topics we are supposed to go through it. Say, in the social structure, basically it is nothing but which is a science, what we call social science, and it was terminated as sociology. See, this is social structure. Social structure it is closely related to the social, one of the social sciences, that is sociology, and the different the subjects and the topics which has been given under this social structure. I think the first thing is what we call is a social structure. What is the social structure? This is social structure nothing but we have to go through about the caste system and family system in our Indian society, marriage system, kinship, which is followed by tribes, status of women, these are the topics what we have to go through under the concept of social structure. In addition to this, each and every topic will be covered casteism and how it differs from communalism and how it differs from regionalism. All these topics what we have to go through under this concept of social structure, and then which is followed by social issues. Social issues. These social issues, what are the social issues in our Indian society? That is the first, under this concept of social issues, we have to go through, that is exclusion, and which is followed by that other social issues in our contemporary Indian society. Not only that social exclusion, which is followed by human trafficking, that is next one is violence against women, and followed by child labor, which is followed by then what we call, it is very important thing, that is migration, the process of migration, why it takes place in our Indian society, what about that features of that migration, whether is it advantageous and suggestible the migration process or not. We have to go through this such type of topics under the social issues in our Indian society, and then which is followed by what we call social movements in Indian society. Under this chapter, social movements, that is the first thing is peasants movement, that is nothing but the movement of farmers in our Indian society, and then Dalit movement, women movement, and BC, backward classes movement in our Indian society. BC classes movement, and environmental movement, and which is followed by human rights movement. These all are the movements what we have to go through right from the beginning of the movement and the origin of the movement, the consequences of the movement, and finally the result of the movement and the present scenario of this movement, and we have to go through with the contemporary issues. So this is the third topic what we have to go through, that is social movements in our Indian society. And next one, the fourth topic, the fourth chapter in our prescribed syllabus, that is what we call it as specific issues which are related to Telangana society. So when we consider Telangana society, the specific issues which are related to the Telangana society are, that is what we call, first thing is, that is bonded labor. What we call it as bonded labor, simply what we call, so grammatically as per the Sanskrit language, vetti chakri, and followed by what we call Jogini system and Devadasi system, and the status of girl child in Telangana society, followed by child labor in Telangana society, and followed by what we call the major problem of Telangana society is fluorosis, which is followed by what we call human trafficking as well as the migration problem and weavers distress. These are particularly what we have to go through each and every topic under the specific issues which are related to Telangana society. Again I am repeating the same, that is bonded labor, what we call vetti chakri system and Jogini system in Telangana society, followed by Devadasi system, and the difference between Jogini system and Devadasi system, and the status of girl child in Telangana society, followed by the child labor system in Telangana society, and the major problem what the most of the people are facing in a few districts just like Rangareddy and Nalgonda, Mehboob Nagar, Adilabad. The problem is that is nothing but fluorosis. What is fluorosis and what about its features? All those things we have to go through under this concept. Next, which is followed by the migration and human trafficking and weavers distress and farmers distress in Telangana society. This is the fourth chapter what we have to concentrate more and more on contemporary issues in our Telangana society. And the last topic is what about the welfare programs. Welfare programs which are being taken and implementing by Government of India as well as the state government in order to empower the status of women, in order to remove the girl child or the bonded labor system or the BC welfare schemes, SC, ST welfare schemes. All these things we have to go through, that whatever that commissions and committees which were provided and established by the central government as well as the state government in order to empower the status of all these weaker sections including women, bonded labor, girl child, all these things will be covered in the last chapter, that is welfare programs which are being provided by the governments of state as well as the central government. These are the 5 units which were provided and prescribed in the syllabus of the social structure. So this is the syllabus part what we have to go through right from the first chapter, that is social structure, and followed by social issues. And the third chapter is that social movements in our Indian society. And fourth one, the specific issues and particular and peculiar issues which are related to Telangana society. And the fifth chapter, last chapter, is the welfare programs in order to empower girls with status of women and all weaker sections in our Indian society. These are the 5 units, friends, what we have to go through each and every topic. Now, we see that concept what he prescribed in our syllabus, that is social structure. So, friends, here social structure, what does it mean? Social structure means how the society is constructed. Here it is the structure of society is nothing but it is a closely related to the social sciences, what we call it is sociology. What is sociology? The word sociology has derived from one Latin word and followed by a Greek word, that is socius and logos. Here, friends, socius means that is colleague or society. Logos, which is a Greek word which means that is science. It is nothing but a science of society which gives the meaning of that concept, that sociology. But friends, here who introduced this concept of sociology, which is well equipped and linked with this concept of social structure? Why? Because the first and foremost philosophers who has done the excellent job on this concept, not on the concept of sociology, only the issues of society. They were Mr. Plato and Aristotle. These two are the Greek philosophers who has done the excellent job in order to study the problems of the society, and which is followed by, in his famous book, he is Mr. Niccolo. In his book, the name of the book which was written by Niccolo was The Prince. He was the first person who described about, that is what we call about the state and its policies. But he did not mention about the concept of social structure or social issues or the concept of sociology. Only he described in his book, that is The Prince, he explained about the state and its policies. And then which is followed by the sociology, the concept, the word sociology was first time introduced by French philosopher is Mr. Auguste Comte. That means the origin of this subject, sociology, was at France. So the French philosopher Auguste Comte was first introduced and used the word sociology, and he was the first person who developed the concept and the subject of sociology in the entire world. Since then, Mr. Auguste Comte was regarded as the father of sociology. He was regarded as the father of sociology. Though it was originated at France, it was well developed at USA. So the full-fledged development has carried at USA, though it was originated at France, and which was introduced, and first time the word sociology was mentioned by Auguste Comte, who was regarded as the father of sociology. And since then, it was first introduced as one of the subjects at university level at Yale University in the year 1876, and followed by it was introduced at university level at France in the year 1889, and in our Indian society it was introduced in the year 1914 at Mumbai University under the guidance of Science. And since then it was sociology has been teaching as one of the subjects in the BA course. It was also introduced in the year 1928 at our Usmania University as one of the subjects in BA course. So this is the what we call the history of sociology, how and when it was introduced by the different universities and how it gained its own significance in the among almost all social sciences. So in our Usmania University, it was introduced as one of the subjects in BA course right from the year 1928 onwards. This is a brief history of the subject, that is sociology. Now friends, can we consider that sociology can we treat it as a full-fledged science or not? Now let us see, sociology is treated only as a positive science, whereas the other social sciences are treated as normative sciences. What is the difference between the normative science and this positive science? Here see, positive science means, because sociology, it is nothing but a study of society. It is a science of society. The society, the norms, traditions, customs it is a totally dynamic process. What does it mean? Dynamic means it always undergoes a rapid changes. Which always undergoes changes can be regarded as a dynamic process or dynamic system. So the society behavior or the norms of society or the traditions and customs of the society may change from time to time. It's not fixed, it's not rigid. So that's why such type of sciences are treated as positive sciences. That's why friends, here sociology is regarded as a positive science and it is not considered as a normative science because it undergoes always changes. That's why sociology is nothing but it is a dynamic science. So this is a brief history of this sociology. And friends, here in this social structure, the first topic what that Public Service Commission prescribed in our syllabus is about caste system. Here, before learning about the caste system, what about the features of our Indian society? Because Indian society is treated as, and it has its own significance, because it always leads on the principle of unity in diversity. Because Indian society is a complex society. Why? Because there are totally more than 12 linguistic regions in Indian society. More than 20,000 link languages are there in our Indian society. Friends, not only on the basis of linguistic, there are nearly 1600 castes and followed by more than 2000 subcastes. Overall, there are 3600 castes and subcastes. Different types of people, different livelihood, different languages, all these things makes Indian society as a wonderful and complex society. It is not so easy to understand the complexity of our Indian society. So that's why this caste system, and second thing is what we call family system, and the third one is marriage, and fourth one is village life. These four are considered as the four pillars of Indian society. What are these four pillars of our Indian society on which our society is running is, that is, first thing is caste system. and family system and a marriage system. Both family and marriage also gives that information about the kinship. Kinship means the relationship, and about the nature of relatives, different types of relationships, and whatever the relationships we are maintaining and which are being maintained by the people in our Indian society. All these things we can beautifully learn in these topics of family and marriage, which also includes the kinship. And the fourth one is, the fourth pillar of Indian society is village life. So caste, family, marriage and village system are the four basic pillars of Indian society. Among these four pillars, the first pillar is what we call it as caste system. So now let us see about the concepts of this caste system. Actually, when we consider the civilization of our Indian society, the civilization of Indian society was originated by what we call Aryan civilization. At around 3000 BC. So Aryan civilization was the basic civilization for Indian society, because in those days there are only two communities in our society. That is, one is Aryans and second one is non-Aryans. Because Aryans, when they were started to migrate into the North Indian part, then they struggled like anything, and they got what we call, that is the leadership and dominant position over the non-Aryans. Non-Aryans and the inhabitants of India were defeated in the hands of Aryans, and they become as what we call Dasyas. It is nothing but, Dasyas means it is nothing but just like a slaves. But they introduced, Aryans introduced the policy in our society, that is what we call, Aryans policy is give and take policy. Give and take policy. Live and let them live. These are the policies of Aryans. Aryan civilization was well described by in the Aryan innovation theory that was introduced by Max Muller, a French philosopher. Max Muller described about the Aryans and the different communities in those days in his famous theory, what we call Aryan innovation theory, that was written by Max Muller, a French philosopher. So these Aryans started their civilization at their own fashion. In those days, only is it caste system is existed in the period of Aryans or not? What is the difference between the caste system and Varna system? Here friends, caste and class and Varna, all these three are entirely different from each other. So we cannot make them, we cannot tie them to a single thread. Why? Because here caste system was totally originated from the system what we call Varna system. So particularly in those days during the Aryan invasion, that is, they were all the people in society were divided and classified into three groups. That is what we call, the first one is Brahma or Brahmin, and the second one Kshatriyas, and the third group Vaishyas. These are the three major categories during this Aryan civilization. But there is one more group, that is fourth group, what they call it as Sudras. But this fourth group Sudras were not included in the main category or in the group of what we call Brahmas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Particularly in this Varna system, there are 4 Varnas, but the 4th Varna, that is Sudras, were not included in the first 3 category, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishyas. Why? Because there is one more Varna is there, that is called Avarna. It is also considered as Panchama. So these are the 4 Varnas, that is Brahma or Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and which was not included in the first 3 group, that is called Sudras. And there is one more group, what we call 5th Varna, that itself is known as Panchama or Avarna. Panchama or Avarna, that is 5th one, whose ethnic status is very low. Here friends, the group of the people whose ethnic status is very low is, that is Panchama Varna, or it is called as Avarna. And here among these 4 Varnas, the first 3 group, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishyas, these were named as Dvijas. So these are called, these group people are named as Dvijas. What is Dvija? Because they have a right, and these people are only eligible for what we call thread marriage or Upanayana karma. For this Upanayana Mahotsav or Upanayana ceremony or Upanayana karma, these Dvijas are having that eligibility, whereas these Sudras are what they named Avarna or Panchama, whose ethnic status is very low, are not eligible for this Upanayana Mahotsav or what we call in English, that is thread marriage system. So why? Because during this Aryan civilization, there is only 2 communities, major communities, that is one is Aryans and second one is non-Aryans. Though Aryans and non-Aryans are there, they followed simply what we call the religion. The religion is known as, that is called Sanatana Dharma. Or it was also called as Vaidika Dharma. Or simply it was known as Hinduism. So Sanatana Dharma, Vaidika Dharma or Hinduism. Actually friends, suppose if I ask a question, what is the name of our country? So it's a very simple question. Everybody has having that awareness. Simply the name of our country is, simply we can say even that LKG student, that is India. Actually our country is named as India by our audience. No, because our name, in true sense, the name of our country is Bharatavarsha or Bharatakanda or Jambu Dvipa. These are the names of our country. So India, then who named this country as India? That is English rulers. That is English rulers, British rulers named this country as India. And Muslim rulers named this country as Hindustan. But actually in true sense, according to our philosophy and epics, the name of this land is what we call Bharatavarsha, Bharatakanda or Jambudvipa. These are the actual names of this land, whereas the British rulers called or named this land as India, whereas Muslim rulers named this land as Hindustan. But in general sense, what we call our country name is India. So what is our nation? Our nation is Indian. So nation, what is nation? The English word nation has derived from a Latin word, what we call natio. Natio. Natio means it is nothing but it's a group. Natio means group. So we all belongs, the people, those who are living in one area or in one region, so belongs to one group, that itself can be considered as a one nation. That is the meaning of what we call that nation, which has derived from a Latin word, that is natio. Natio means it is nothing but a group. So in this way, that Aryan civilization, in those days there is no caste system, only that is what we call Varna system was in existence. Namely, there are 4 Varnas: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and Sudras are not included in the above category. And there is one more, that is 5th Varna, what they named as Panchama Varna, or what they named it as Avarna. Here one more thing, friends, what we have to remember, how this Varna system was formed. What is the base for the formation of this Varna system? So according to Hindu epics, here in the earlier, just when we learn about this our religion, our, that is Hinduism or Vaidika Dharma or Sanatana Dharma. What about that Hinduism? Hinduism, is it a religion or not? So in true sense, what that British people called, the people who had migrated from the Indus Valley and those who are settled in the Indian society, and those namely those were named as Hindus. But there is no particular evidence or particular proof for the Hindu religion. It was assumed, it was imagined that the people who migrated from Indus Valley were named as Hindus by the British rulers. So anyhow, we are following Hinduism, the biggest religion in the entire world, and particularly in our Indian society. So according to that Hinduism, caste system was not existed during those Aryan period. Only Varna system was in existence, that too 4 Varnas, and 5th Varna is also there, that is Avarna or Panchama Varna. But here, friends, this Varna system, how it was formed? What about the origin of this Varna system? According to one of the epics, that is Bhagavad Gita, which was related to Hinduism, or the great holy book of that Hindus, what it said? Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita preached that he was the creator of this Varna system. So he considered the 2 things in the creation of that Varna system, as well said by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. What are those 2 things? What he considered before originating this Varna system are, the first one is Guna and second one is Karma. Here, friends, what we have to see in the examination point of view, all the 4 Varna system and including that 5th Varna, that is Panchama, were created. It's a God divine. As well said in Bhagavad Gita, those are derived and those are originated on the basis of the 2 things. One is Guna and Karma of human beings. Guna, what is Guna? It is nothing but it reveals about the characteristic features of human being. So there are what we call gunas, or that is Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna and Tamas. Sattva, Rajo, Tamasu. These 3 were regarded as 3 different types of gunas. Here, the first category people, that is Brahmas or Brahmins, who were act as a priest, they dominates this, the first guna, that is Sattva Guna. And Rajo Guna will be dominated by the Kshatriyas and followed by Vaishyas. They dominate this, what we call Tamasu. So these 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajo, Tamasu and the Karma, these 2 are the determinant factors on which this Varna system was created by the God, which was well said by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. So this is the origin of Varna system according to the holy book of Hindus, and they believe, they have a strong belief on this origin. Whether it was accepted or rejected by the different sections of the people, it is entirely different thing, but this is one of the concepts and aspects of the origin of the Varna system. Now friends, is there any difference between the Varna and what we called caste? Most of the people, like all of us, have in a great confusion with caste with Varna. So how can we cope up with that confusion? Varna and caste are the same factors or not? It's very clearly that Varna and caste are not the same. Whereas at the same time, caste system has been originated from the system of Varna. So many philosophers, many sociologists, many scholars, nobody has succeeded in pointing out that to define and to differentiate the Varna and caste. So almost all philosophers, almost all sociologists, nobody has succeeded in pointing out the same. So but it was believed that caste system has originated from the Varna system. But friends, don't remember that Varna system has originated from the caste system. So here this is the major factor of this caste system. What we learned, the first basic pillar of Indian society, that is nothing but caste system. So this caste, how this word caste has derived. So the first thing is the caste has derived from a Spanish word that is casta. Spanish word that is casta. What does it mean? Casta means nothing but breed or race or a complex of hereditary features. This is the meaning of the word casta, which belongs to that what we call Spanish. And the word, Spanish word casta, has been taken from a Latin word that is castus, which means pure. Here friends, there are two different versions. What we have to remember in examination point of view, the word, English word, that is caste, that has derived from a Spanish word casta. Casta, which means breed or race or complex of hereditary features. Whereas the Spanish word casta has been taken from a Latin word that is castus. Castus means what we call it is pure. At the same time, till the end of 17th century, Indian society did not follow the caste system. It was not in existence in Indian society till the end of 17th century. But at the same time, the Portuguese people, the Portuguese rulers, and they themselves introduced and they imparted a what we called caste to certain class of people in Indian society, and they named what they named as jati. So the name jati was given and proposed by the Portuguese people. But in our, according to our Indian terminology and Indian traditions, we are using the English word that is caste. But the origin of the word caste is from Spanish word casta, and that casta has taken from castus, which is a Latin word which means pure. But till the end of 17th century that Indian people did not what we call follow the caste system, but at the same time the Portuguese people has imparted that to certain section, to certain class of the people in Indian society, and they named as jati. But we are using the English word as that is what we called caste, which was regarded as the basic, one of the basic pillars of Indian society, that is caste system. Now friends, my question is, caste system is advantageous to Indian society, or it is not useful at all? Can we support the caste system in our society or not? Can we reject the caste system in our Indian society or not? Why? Because in the Indian society it is not so easy to define caste. As well said by G.S. Ghurye, he was the first person who was appointed as what we call HOD, head of the department for sociology department at Mumbai University in the year 1928. He was the first person who started Indian sociological literature and Indian sociological society. Since then, G.S. Ghurye was regarded as father of Indian sociology. Father of Indian sociology. But friends, here in the beginning we quoted one person's name. He is Mr. Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte was regarded as father of sociology, whereas G.S. Ghurye was regarded as the father of Indian sociology. He was the first person who established Indian Sociological Society in the year 1928. And G.S. Ghurye, as well said by father of Indian sociology, every attempt what we are doing and what we are making to define the term caste is bound to fail. What he said, it is bound to fail. Any attempt, whatever the attempt we are going to make to define the word caste, is simply said to be bound to fail. That means we cannot define. We cannot define the term caste, what caste is. Only we can know the caste. So every person knows his caste, but no person knows about how he belongs to that particular caste, how it was originated. Because from generation to generation, it is a tradition. I belongs to particular caste. That person X belongs to particular caste. Y belongs to some other caste. And Z belongs to some other caste. How this caste? How they can say that I belongs to this particular caste? Is there any evidence? Is there any proof? No, not at all. But how can we come to the conclusion that a particular person belongs to that particular caste? So that's why G.S. Ghurye, as well said by him, every attempt what we are making to define this caste is bound to fail. At the same time, S.V. Katkar, he also explained that it is not useful to know how that word caste has derived, because it does not reveal the information about the origin of caste. Only just what we came to know, caste, the word has derived from Spanish, that Spanish word has derived from Latin word, but is there any meaning that how that caste was originated? No, not at all. That's why S.V. Katkar well said, it's not useful to know how that word caste has derived. It is not helpful to us how it was originated. So that's why the philosophers, that sociologists like Mazumdar, Risley, These philosophers as well as sociologists has defined it is nothing but a caste is a collection of or a group of the same what we call endogenous members. A group of members, it is a collection of group or members who maintains what we call a common ancestor. So a common ancestor, a common forefather. So that group itself can be defined as caste, as well said by Mazumdar, and the same expression was provided and the same expression and the same definition was provided by both Mazumdar as well as that Risley. Here in our present scenario, in our Indian society, is it possible to take out that caste system completely from our Indian society? Is it necessary to us or not? Why? Because the first pillar of Indian society, caste system, we have to go through it. The caste, the origin of caste, the theories which are supporting the origin of caste, and followed by the different characteristics features of what we call caste system, the characteristic features of caste system, and then which one, what we have to call it as in our present Indian society, is it possible to take out completely caste system? People are ready. Whether the people are ready to give up their castes? What is our answer for that question, friends? So certainly not. Why? Because in our Indian society, two major issues are dominating like anything. That's why it is not easy to take out that caste system or to remove or abolish the caste system completely from our Indian society. But what we can do, we can minimize. What we can do, we can minimize what we call the rigidity in the caste system. That is the thing what we can do. Why? Because even in the final verdict of Supreme Court in the year 1992 also stated, this year you have to remember, friends, final verdict which was given by the Supreme Court in the year 1992 also explained and also quoted the same, because it is not easy to remove the caste system from our Indian society, because there are two strong forces on which the caste system was depends. One is that is reservation process in our Indian society, and the second thing is politics. Because almost all reservations which are being implemented in our Indian society are totally based on the caste system only, nothing more. And second thing is caste and politics are interdependent and interrelated, and they are both are dominating like anything. So that's why as long as the reservation process is going on, there is no question of dying out of the caste system. So that's why both reservation process and caste system are interdependent on each other. As long as these two systems are going on, it is not so easy. But what we have to do as a citizen of India, we can minimize the rigidity which was fixed, and that is which is what we call the social evils we can minimize from this caste system. That is the thing what we can do, according as well said by what we call is the greatest philosopher as well as sociologist is Mr. K.M. Kapadia. So as well said by K.M. Kapadia, caste system never dies out from our Indian society. The same thing well explained and described and quoted by the Supreme Court in its final verdict in the year 1992 also the same. But we can minimize, we must try to remove and minimize the rigidity and social evils which were included in this caste system. That is the thing what we can do as a citizen of India. So in this caste system, because it always follows the features. What about the features? Whether they are useful or not, it's a secondary. But the main features of this caste system, it follows the hierarchy. Hierarchy means what we call, there are 4 varnas, what we explain, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudras. That means that is hierarchy. The first status, the highest status has been given to the Brahmins, and the second topmost position has been given to Kshatriyas, and only the people who looks after about the trade and commerce, that is Vaishyas, and Sudras are not allowed into the group of either Brahmin or Kshatriya or Vaishyas. This itself, this principle itself is known as what we call caste system is following the hierarchy. That means here one more important thing, the philosophical touch of this Varna system as well quoted in the holy books of Hindus, or as per the Hinduism, and as well said by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmin can become as Sudra, at the same time Sudra can also become as a Brahmin. Why? Because when we consider, when we observe the word very clearly, the Latin word that is castus, what does it mean? Castus means pure. Though the person who belongs to the Brahmin category or Brahmin group, who is not following the norms, the rules and the purity, then he will be regarded as a Sudra. And the person who was born as a Sudra by birth, if he is following the rules and regulations and he is giving uttermost importance for purity, can be treated as a Brahmin. So there is no restriction that Brahmin should become as a Brahmin, Kshatriya as Kshatriya, Vaishya as Vaishya, or Sudra need not become or need not lead his life till his hand as a Sudra. So this is the vice versa. This is a cyclic process as said by Lord Krishna. So this all the principles gives that information about that caste system follows the principle of hierarchy. But in those days, so many, the important characteristic feature of the caste system is they are organizing what we call caste panchayat. Caste panchayat. What does it mean? Caste panchayat means the person who belongs to any of the caste who is neglecting the rules and regulations of that particular caste will be punished by the what we call the members of the caste panchayat. So now caste panchayat, the members, the head of the caste panchayat has a right to punish that person who is violating the rules and regulations of that particular caste. If he is not, he is neglecting and he is overlooking about the rules, and he is not listening to the family members or to the society, he is not following the societal norms, then he will be punished severely by the head of this caste panchayat. Now here the biggest $1,000,000 question is, now is there any existence of this caste panchayat in our present scenario in our Indian society or not? Now the answer is the British government abolished, banned this caste panchayats, because caste panchayats, all the powers which were enjoyed and vested in the hands of the caste panchayats were totally transferred to the civil and criminal courts. Now nobody who is a member of caste panchayat is not supposed to give any punishment to the person who is violating, though he is violating the rules and norms of that particular caste. But friends, here one thing we have to remember, in the society of Telangana, particularly in the rural areas, that now and then, here and there, the caste panchayats are going on. But the government is issuing a strict orders, and government is taking that what we call a severe action on those people, those who are organizing these caste panchayats, because it was totally prohibited from our Indian society. This is one of the important feature of this caste system in those days. And one important thing is there are restrictions on marriage. There are restrictions on food. and there are so many civil what we call disabilities. So what are the restrictions on marriage? The person is supposed to marry a person who belongs to the same caste, belongs to the same group. He is not supposed to marry the person of the other caste or other group. If it is so, he will be punished very severely. The persons do not have any freedom. What we call the caste system, one of the features of the caste system is restriction on marriages. Even there is a clear-cut restriction on taking the food stuff. Why? Because the persons, the group of people who were treated as dvijas, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishya, upper castes, these peoples are only supposed to take what we call that is a pakka food. Whereas the other people, Sudras and the Panchama Varna people, they are supposed to take that kacha food. Because all the dishes were prepared with pure ghee, and whereas whether they are prepared with other types of oils or water, those only Sudras are allowed to take that type of food. And moreover, there is a one restriction on social maintenance of social distance. What does it mean? This social distance means that people, those who belongs to the fourth group or fifth group, Sudras or Panchama Varnas, are not supposed to touch the people who belongs to the upper caste. If they want to speak with that upper caste person, they are supposed to maintain certain distance. They are not supposed to come close to the person belongs to the upper caste. Even they are not supposed to touch the person. What we call, they are strictly maintained what we call the social distance whenever they want to take any advice, piece of advice or suggestion from the upper caste persons. These are the restrictions on those people of fourth Varna, that is Sudra, and the fifth one, that is Panchama Varna or Avarna. And moreover, the people, the group of people who were not regarded as dvijas, who were named as non-dvijas, are supposed to live at the outskirts of the village or towns. They are not supposed to live in between, in the city or in that village or in that town among the people who belongs to the upper caste. That is what we call social or civil disabilities and what we call social evils in those days. This is also, this all are the characteristic features of what we call that is caste system. So no people belongs to that Sudra Jati not supposed to live in between the houses of upper caste people, and even they do not have any right, they are not eligible to drink the water from the wells from where that upper caste people are using. They are not supposed to drink the same water from the same well. These all are the restrictions on the people which were the result of what we call it as the caste system. So these important features of this caste system, what we have to summarize, that is, it follows that hierarchy, and second thing is the caste panchayat, organization of this caste panchayats, and whether these caste panchayats are in existence or not means according to our constitution, according to the government, caste panchayats are totally prohibited. But even though now and then, here and there, we are observing, we are watching that some places, particularly in rural areas, these caste panchayats are going on. And the next one is that social distance, that low caste people, those ethnic lives are very low, are not supposed to touch the upper caste people. They are supposed to maintain some social distance. And next followed restriction on marriage. Each and every caste people must and should marry their own group person or own caste person. They are not supposed to marry what we call intercaste or interreligious marriages are strictly prohibited. So we will see many details in the marriage system as well as the family system, which are also considered as the basic pillars of Indian society. And then what we call kacha food and pakka food. That is what we call, this principle itself gives that information about there are so many restrictions on foodstuff, because the fourth varna and fifth varna people are not supposed to take the food what the upper caste people are having. That is, these are the restrictions, and these are, at the same time, all these things what we have to remember, the characteristic features of this caste system. So that's why caste system, we cannot remove the caste system, but what we can do, we can minimize the rigidity which was strongly based on the principle of caste, which is resulting in the social evils and social distances from the person to the person. And the most important characteristic feature, the caste, and it was well determined by the time of birth, not by the process of selection. Soon after the birth of the person, the caste was well determined. Otherwise, suppose if we ask a question of any person, what is your caste? Definitely, he is mentally ready, prepared. Yes, sir, I belongs to the caste, particularly that is X caste. How do you know that you belong to the X caste? No, sir. My parents are informed that I belongs to this X caste. How your fathers know that they belongs to the X caste? No, sir. Our forefathers, our grandparents described, explained about their caste to my parents. My parents informed me that I belongs to this caste. What we can understand from this concept, friends, that is, caste system or caste of a human being was well determined by the time of birth, not by the process of selection. In our Indian society, no person has that right to select his caste. That's why it was well determined by the time of birth, which was entirely different from what we called afterwards, that is class. So that's why there is a difference between caste and class. Which caste belongs to? Yes, everybody has their own caste. But class will not, and it never be determined by the time of birth. Class only determined by the achievements of the person. Whatever the achievements, definitely he will get that class. Whereas caste system is very particular and peculiar and permitted to our Indian society, almost all. Whereas class is universal process. We can achieve anything. Though the person was born as a low caste person, say, whose ethnic values are very low, ethnic life is very low. Suppose a person Y was born as a Sudra Jati, but he became as a successful person in his life. He became as a civil service assistant. He was selected as IAS officer. But how can we mention whether that post of the person, that was achievement, what the person was achieved, that is civil service post, that itself shows the class of the person. But unfortunately, in our society, the social identity is being given to the person by his caste first and then class only. Though the person is achieved the highest status, but most of the Indian people are watching about his caste rather than his class. That is the difference between caste and class. Caste was well determined by the time of birth, whereas class was determined by the achievement of the person. Whereas caste is particular and peculiar, most probably for our Indian society, whereas class is universal. And there is a more what we call social distance in the concept of caste, whereas the social distance is very low, very less in the system what we call, that is class. So that's why caste is entirely different from class. But the most important thing, as quoted by the famous and well-known sociologist who belongs to our India, he is Mr. M.N. Srinivas. belongs to Mysore of Karnataka state. He well described about the caste and class. He was the person who introduced the words what we called Sanskritization. Sanskritization, Westernization, these are the terms which were well valued in this sociology and which makes a great and rapid changes, and which these two concepts were minimized the rigidity in our caste system. That's why friends, what we have to study, what about the future of the caste system before independence and after independence? What are the changes and what are the influencing factors in order to minimize the rigidity in the caste system in our Indian society? We have to go through it. And after that, which was followed by the theories in order to know about the origin of caste. So though we study number of theories which were provided by so many philosophers and sociologists, but we never come to the conclusion how the caste was originated. But we will get a certain clarity, oh, this is the concept, how our caste was originated. Even we study many theories which were provided by what we call traditional theory or racial theory or occupational theory, political theory, evolutionary theory, samskar theory. There are so many theories on the origin of caste. Even though we study, we go through all those theories, we never come to the conclusion this is the particular concept how that caste was originated. But we will get a clear-cut idea about the origin of caste. All those theories and the concept of the caste system and how it was in existence before independence and after independence. And what are the main factors, what we call influencing factors, what we can call it as industrialization, and what we call industrialization which was followed by urbanization, after urbanization Sanskritization, after Sanskritization Westernization. These are the four major factors which minimized the rigidity in our caste system. One is Westernization, that is called, the first one is industrialization, and second one is urbanization, and the third concept is Sanskritization, and the fourth factor is Westernization. We never forget friends, these four are the influencing factors how they minimized the rigidity in our caste system in our Indian society. That is industrialization and urbanization. Why? Because urbanization always follows that industrialization. Whenever there is a industrialization, that urbanization takes place. Whenever urbanization takes place, what we call Sanskritization. The Sanskritization word and Westernization were well included and introduced in the concept of sociology by eminent professor in sociology is Mr. M.N. Srinivas. Sanskritization is nothing but all the low caste people are following or imitating that what we call in all aspects the upper caste people. That itself can be defined as Sanskritization, and which is followed by the Westernization. These are the four factors how they minimize the rigidity in our caste system. We will see how this industrialization policy takes place in our Indian society, urbanization, Sanskritization and Westernization, which is followed by the different theories which explain about the origin of caste, and then followed by whether the caste system does it exist in the Indian society or not. According to K.M. Kapadia, it never dies out, but we can minimize the rigidity in this caste system. And then what is the meaning of George Money system? The George Money system and the George Money system characteristic features, and these four factors: industrialization, urbanization, Sanskritization and Westernization concepts, and the caste system before independence and after independence, and tremendous and rapid changes in our Indian society in the aspect of this caste system. We will see all these things one by one in the first topic and the first what we call basic pillar of Indian society, that is caste system. Now let us see about the caste system and the features of caste system. See, the main characteristic features of this caste system, what we learned in earlier class, that is, caste has its own significance, and moreover, it is always follows the principle of hierarchy, and it was divided. What we call that division is vertical division, not a horizontal. So as long as the caste system was divided into vertical, so there will be more and more rigidity in the caste system. Why? Because the fundamental arrangement of this caste system is hierarchical. So in this hierarchy, what is happening? Some dominant caste, that is Brahmins, and the second one is what we call Kshatriyas and Vaishyas and Sudras. What we call this division is vertical. So this vertical solidity will always includes more and more rigidity in the caste system. As well said by our eminent Indian sociologist Mr. M.N. Srinivas. There should be horizontal solidity. So that's why he was the first person who introduced the term what he called and named as social stratification. So that horizontal solidity will be preferred to that of what we call it as vertical solidity. As in the words of eminent professor and sociologist belongs to our Indian society is Mr. M.N. Srinivas. Now we see, though we define the term caste, but we never come to the conclusion how the caste was originated. As well said by S.V. Katkar, or who was regarded as the father of Indian sociology, Mr. G.S. Gray. In the words of G.S. Gray or Mr. S.V. Katkar, the definition is not possible to define the term caste, how it was originated. Moreover, it is not helpful or useful to us to know how the term caste has derived, whether it is from Spanish or Latin or Portuguese, whatever it is nothing. We cannot make it as useful and fruitful measure to know the origin of the caste. That's why, friends, let us see a few theories which are based and which emphasized about the origin of caste. Even though we learn many theories on the origin of caste, but we never come to the conclusion. Anyhow, we will see and we try to attempt to know about the origin of caste in brief. Here you see, friends, among the theories, the first one is what we call traditional theory. This traditional theory. What is traditional theory? According to this theory, the caste system has established, due to what this theory is emphasizing to us, it is a divine ordinance, or at least by the approval of divine. It is a God gift. Simply in brief, it's a God gift or divine ordinance, or at least by the approval of divine. This is what we call the traditional theory. What is the base for it? The evidence for this traditional theory is, that is what we call Purusha Sukta of Rig Veda. This is the evidence for this traditional theory. Many sections of the people, particularly who belongs to Hinduism, have a strong belief on this traditional theory, though it was rejected and refused by many scholars. In the words of Mr. D.N. Mazumdar, Though it was refused and rejected by so many scholars, but it has its own significance. It has its own significance in the words of Mr. Mazumdar. So, traditional theory is nothing but it emphasized about the origin of the caste. It is nothing but it has established by divine ordinance, or at least by the approval of divine. And the evidence for this traditional theory is Purusha Sukta of Rigveda. It was rejected and refused by so many scholars even, but in the words of Mr. Mazumdar, it has its own significance. Many people belongs to Hinduism they are having a great and large and huge belief on this traditional theory. That's why caste system was still in existence in our Indian society. This is about that traditional theory, and this is followed by the second one, that is occupational theory. This occupational theory was propounded by Mr. Nesfield. So, what is occupational theory? According to Nesfield, or according to his occupational theory, occupation and occupation alone are responsible for the origin of caste. Nothing else. No alternate for the origin of caste except occupation and occupation alone, because he strongly believed that the people, those who are doing their occupations traditionally, are depending on the basis of hereditary features that caste has originated. So, this theory tried to establish a relationship between the caste on one hand and occupation on the other hand. So, caste and occupation, there is an empirical relationship between the caste and occupation. So, as well said by Nesfield, this is nothing but only occupation from the occupation and the people who are performing the different types of occupations, that is the origin and the fundamental source for the establishment of the caste system, as said by Nesfield. This is the second theory for the origin of the caste, how it was established, what we call occupational theory, and followed by racial theory. So, this racial theory, who introduced this racial theory? Here, we have to remember three well-known and eminent scholars in this case, that is, in case of racial theory, that is Professor Herbert Risley, and G.S. Gray, and then Mazumdar. These three eminent scholars propounded this theory, that is racial theory. Here, according to this theory, the caste system was in existence or established in our Indian society after Aryans were settled in India. This is, they emphasized about the socio-religious aspect. There is the fundamental source for this racial theory, which was propounded by these three eminent scholars, is socio-religious aspects. When that Aryans were settled in India, then since then the caste system was established in our Indian society, that is the theory, because there are two major communities in the society in those days, that is Aryans and non-Aryans. The people or inhabitants of India, those who lived in this country before the arrival of these Aryans, were defeated in the hands of the Aryans, and they become the slaves to those Aryans, what they called technically Dasyas. Since then, this racial theory, according to this racial theory, the caste was originated after Aryans were settled in our Indian society. It was emphasized by all these three eminent philosophers and scholars, that is Herbert Risley, G.S. Gray, and Mr. D.N. Mazumdar. This is about this racial theory for the origin or establishment of caste system, and which is followed by cultural integration theory. Cultural integration. Here friends, cultural integration theory, this was proposed by Sarath Chandra Roy. So according to this theory, cultural integration by Sarath Chandra Roy. According to Roy, how this caste system was established means it was originated due to what he called integration and assimilation of different cultures of different sections of people in the society. That is the fundamental source for the origin of caste according to this cultural integration theory, or in the words of Sarath Chandra Roy. Why? Because different sections of people are following different cultures. So whenever they are integrating their cultures and assimilating their cultures, as a result the caste system has been originated. That is the concept which we revealed from this cultural integration theory. And after this cultural integration theory, and the next theory is evolutionary theory. So friends, this evolutionary theory, this was proposed by Desmond Bitson. So according to Bitson, there are three major factors for the origin of caste system. What are those three major factors for the origin of caste system according to Bitson means? One is tribe, and second one is occupation, and third one is religion. These three are the responsible factors for the origin of caste system according to Desmond Bitson, or according to the theory which what he proposed, that what we call it as evolutionary theory. So after evolutionary theory, then one more theory, that is what we call it as samskar theory. This samskar theory was proposed by, that is Howard, and samskar theory is nothing but which is just like a similar to that of occupational theory. Whenever the persons or the people are performing certain type of activities or duties, that means those activities or duties reveals about their occupation. So indirectly this theory emphasizes the occupational theory which was proposed by Nesfield. So samskars means here that activities or the things which are being carried out by the different sections of the people in the society. What he named it as samskars. So based on the duties or functions or activities which are being carried out by the different sections of the people, then the caste has been originated according to Howard, or the theory what he proposed, what we call it as samskar theory. And the last theory on the origin of this caste system was proposed by Mr. Gilbert. According to this Gilbert, and the theory proposed by Gilbert is known as geographical theory. So he emphasized about the people, the different sections of the people, those who are living at the different areas. That means at the different geographical regions. So depending on the livelihood of the people at different zones, different geographical zones, then the caste system was originated. The people, those who are living in a particular geographical zone, are called, belongs to either upper caste or lower caste. So depending on the geographical division of the people, he emphasized about the origin of the caste system. This is what he called it as geographical theory on the origin of the caste system. So these all are the theories on origin of the caste, but when we summarize all these theories, that is traditional theory followed by occupational and racial theory, and Sarath Chandra Roy's cultural integration theory, and evolutionary theory by Bitson, Samskar theory, and Gilbert's geographical theory. These all theories reveals a little bit information about the origin of the caste, but none of these theories has succeeded in pointing out a clear-cut definition for the origin or the establishment of the caste system. Only for getting certain idea about the origin of the caste system, we are supposed to go through all these different theories which were proposed by the different scholars and sociologists as well as philosophers. Now, in the words of M.N. Srinivas, does this caste system exist even in the 21st century or not? So definitely what he said, yes. The answer is yes. Then my question, friends, is it advantageous to the people of Indian society for about the survival of the caste system or not? That answer is most of the people are in dilemma or in confusion. We cannot say the answer whether it is yes or no, because the caste system on one hand provides what it provides to us. It provides what we call social status. Not only social status, it also provides social identity. It looks after the welfare of the people who belongs to that particular caste. So it provides social status, it provides social identity, but at the same time there are so many disadvantages rather than the advantages of this caste system. Can we list out the disadvantages? Means the first and foremost thing is it affects national integrity. It affects national integrity. It may also decline the status of women in society. Not only declining the status of women in society, what we call it declines the personality of an individual. No person can grow properly, independently due to this caste system. Why? Because if a person who belongs to the low caste, he wants to become as a good scholar, but some people who belongs to the upper caste may tease him because you are not useful person, you are not fit for that post or to study for that particular education. What does it mean? Because this is not only declining the status of women, it also declines the personality of an individual. These all are the what we call disadvantages. If we are unable to minimize, reduce, decline the rigidity in the caste system, what ultimately happens that conversions may take place on a large scale. Not only conversions, it also declines the personality of an individual. These all are the disadvantages of caste system. Then what are the factors which contributes for the continuation of the caste? Means though it is providing social status and it provides that social identity to the person, though there are so many disadvantages as what we said now, but there are a few factors which contribute for the continuation of the caste. What are those factors which are contributing for the continuation of this caste system? particularly what we have to remember, it has caste system has adaptability. That means it is flexible. And second thing is, it has a powerful weapon for the politicians and politics. And moreover, that reservation system is based on caste system. So due to these factors, then definitely the caste system will continue forever in the society. But what I said earlier, though it is flexible, though it acts as a powerful weapon in politics, and moreover, it is all these reservations are totally based on the caste system in our Indian society. Due to these major and main factors and features, so it never dies out in our Indian society. But what we can do, we can minimize the rigidity in what we call in the caste system. So this is why M.N. Srinivas well said that even 21st century onwards, then there will be a caste system in our Indian society, but we can minimize that social evils and social distance from person to person, particularly the gap between upper caste people and low caste people. That is the only the thing what we can do. The same thing was emphasized by Mr. K.M. Kapadia also. K.M. Kapadia also. So these are the factors, advantages and disadvantages, as well as the factors which are contributing for the continuation of this caste system. Now we see, are there any social changes in caste system or not? Social changes in caste system or not? Now we can study the social changes which takes place in the caste system in three stages. What are those three stages? That is, the first stage is what we call it as pre-industrial British period. The first stage is pre-industrial British period. That is right from 1757 to 1918. And the second stage, that is pre-independent British period, that is from 1919 till 1947. And the third stage, after independence or in modern India. So there are three stages what we have to study about the social changes which takes place in caste system. The first stage, as what we learned, pre-industrial British period. Why? Because though the East India Company was established in the year 1813, before that the British people has surveyed the entire Indian society for more than 7 to 8 decades. And most probably after Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of India, was appointed, the British government started to introduce so many things in our Indian society. After they got a political, what we call strength over the entire Indian society, they introduced the equal or uniform legal, legislative as well as judicial systems in the Indian society. That is the what we call the first and milestone in the entire Indian society, which makes and which brought so many changes in the rigidity of caste system. So they introduced, the British rulers introduced first time that uniform what we call legal system judicial system as well as legislative system. See, let us see a few of the legislations which were introduced by the British government. That is, the first thing is, in order to remove the disabilities in the caste system. So, the removal of disabilities in caste system, that is removal of disabilities in caste act, they introduced in the year in 1850. What we call removal of the practice of untouchability. And which is followed by again the second act what they made in the year 1860. In the 1860 they introduced the act, that is Child Marriage Restraint Act. Child Marriage Restraint Act. After that, this act was amended so many times. We will see in the some other chapters. And in the year 1872, they introduced Special Marriage Act. And in the year 1876, they introduced Widow Remarriage Act. Widow Remarriage Act. So, these are the four acts which were introduced by the British government after they started their rule in Indian society. So, by this act, this is the people will be punished very severely if they maintain the gap or social distance between the different sections of the people. According to this act, there should be no more touchables and untouchables in society. That's why this act is called Removal of Practice of Untouchability, which was introduced in the year 1850. And Child Marriage Restraint Act, because till then there is a what we call certain restrictions on the marriage age, particularly for the girl child. So during the Vedic period and Puranic period, and after that Dharma Shastra period also, there is what we call till below at the age of 8 years or 9 years, the girl child must and should get married. And after that, that was changed that soon after that physical maturity of the girl child, the parents are supposed to get marry her within the period of 3 years. Otherwise, it becomes a great sin that what that parents of that girl child has what we call practice. So that's why the British government introduced the act Child Marriage Restraint Act and followed by the Special Marriage Act. What is the Special Marriage Act? This Special Marriage Act provided and it was legally permitted intercaste and interreligious marriages. So till then there is a conditions and restrictions on the Hindu marriage system. Endogamous marriages are only what we called acceptable. So exogamous marriages are not acceptable. So due to this act, Special Marriage Act, all intercaste marriages and interreligious marriages are approved and legally permitted and authorized. And followed by Widow Remarriage Act, because till then widows are not supposed to remarry. But after the British rulers introduced this act, Widow Remarriage Act, that all widows are accepted to remarry according to their will and wish. These four are the legislative measures which have been taken by the British government soon after they started their rule. And behind this, friends, they first of all they tightened that what we call the rules, the powers of caste panchayats. British government has transferred the powers of which were vested in the hands of the members of the caste panchayat to civil and criminal courts. Till then, nobody, that no member of caste panchayat is supposed to give any sort of punishments to the people who belongs to their same caste or other caste. But one instructions, instead of this caste panchayats, they have given permission and there is a provision to maintain or manage what they call caste organizations. Through caste organizations, any caste people can establish that organization. Through their organization, they can look after the welfare of that particular caste people. But no member or no caste is supposed to what we call conduct or organize these caste panchayats. These are the legislative measures which has been taken by the British government soon after they started their rule. And immediately at the same time, the social reforms, impact of social reforms. So impact of social reforms in sense of minimizing or declining the rigidity in caste system. So social reformers who belongs to Indian society has done excellent and great job in minimizing the rigidity in caste system. Among those social reformers, the first person and foremost person what we have to discuss about Mr. Raja Ram Mohan Rai through his Samaj, what we call it as Brahma Samaj. So through Brahma Samaj, he has done a significant job in order to removal that what we call the practice of untouchability. He strongly condemned the practice of untouchability, and moreover Brahma Samaj advocated to the different sections of the people to maintain the brotherhood of man. So that is the excellent job that was done by Raja Ram Mohan Rai through that what we call Brahma Samaj. And similarly, one more Samaj, what we call it as Prarthana Samaj. This Prarthana Samaj, actually the founder was Atmaram Pandu. But all the activities of this Prarthana Samaj were carried out by one of his great disciples, he is Mr. Justice Ranade. So Justice Ranade is just what we call a great disciple of Atmaram Pandu, or Atmaram Pandu was regarded just a guru to Justice Ranade. Both has done a significant job in what we call through their Samaj, that is Prarthana Samaj. The main concept of this Prarthana Samaj is they arranged what we call inter-dining system. Irrespective of social distances, irrespective of upper caste and lower caste, they encouraged this inter-dining system as well as inter-caste marriages as well as inter-religious marriages through their Prarthana Samaj, which was established and carried out by Atmaram Pandu, and his great disciple is Mr. Justice Ranade through the Prarthana Samaj. Here in examination point of view, we have to remember Prarthana Samaj well advocated and established and organized this inter-dining system as well as well encouraged inter-caste and inter-religious marriages. And this followed by Swami Dayananda's Arya Samaj. Actually, this Arya Samaj also, what we have to remember, this Arya Samaj served and acted as a strong militant force to protect the concepts and aspects of Hindus and Hinduism. Simply, we have to remember that Arya Samaj acted and served as a strong militant force to protect all these concepts of Hindus and particularly their religion, what we call it as Hinduism. Not only for the protection of Hindu's philosophy and their Sanatana Dharma or Vaidika Dharma. Moreover, Arya Samaj was also started a movement what we called Suddhi movement. The name of the movement which was started by Swami Dayananda Saraswati through his Samaj. Arya Samaj is called as Suddhi movement. What is Suddhi movement? It is nothing but, in English we can say this is purification. What is the main goal and purpose of this Suddhi movement means? In order to re-Hinduize the different sections of the people. That means the people who belongs to the Hinduism or the Hindus who converted into other religions. He wants to call back to their mother religion, that is Hinduism. That's why the main purpose of Suddhi movement or the purification is re-Hinduization. Re-Hinduization was started by Arya Samaj, that is person is Swami Dayananda Saraswati. It acted as a strong militant force in order to protect that Hindu philosophy and their Sanatana or Vaidika Dharma. And followed by Satyasodak Samaj. This Satyasodak Samaj was started by and Mr. Jyoti Rao Phule. Actually, Jyoti Rao Phule, he was the first person and the founder and the father of BC movements in Indian society. Simply we can say that he was the person who acted, who served just like a backbone for these backward class movements in our Indian society. Through his Satyasodak Samaj, Jyoti Rao Phule has done an excellent job to minimize, to take out, to remove completely the rigidities in the caste system. He was the first person who strongly rejected about the philosophy of upper caste, particularly the Brahmin philosophy. So Brahmin philosophy was totally rejected by Satyasodak Samaj founder, he is Mr. Jyoti Rao Phule. As a result, many BC movements has taken place in our Indian society. He was the first person who started a separate primary school for children at the then Bombay state, at the town that is Pune. So this upper caste people, lower caste people, he always tried to what we call remove or to minimize the distance between them. And Satyasodak Samaj has done excellent job, and all these activities of Satyasodak Samaj were carried out by his great disciple, he is Mr. Sahu Maharaj. Sahu Maharaj was one of the great disciples of Jyoti Rao Phule,